What is up guys, it's Solheim here, back with another Wrath of the Lich King Classic video. Today we are talking about gold farming, and it's been quite a while since we talked about specific gold farms on this channel, because we're still quite a long time away from Wrath's release, but this farm right here could help influence people's decision for class choices and profession choices in Wrath Classic, in which case I think it's highly relevant to talk about this farm right now. So the farm we're going to talk about today is the so-called 1000 gold per hour Wrath Classic gold farm, aka the Rogue Karazhan gold farm. This is a gold farming technique that's been around forever, pretty much since OG Wrath, and there's probably thousands of people that I could give credit to for this video idea, but the main two are Swole Benji and JGM Gaming, both of whom have made a video on how to do this farm in the recent months. Now before we talk about this farm, I do want to say that this is a rogue specific farm. Other classes might be able to do the same strategy in a sense, aka AoE farming inside Karazhan, but no other classes can do it at the same efficiency as a rogue. That being said, if you're playing a different class or just looking for other gold farms in general, I have included a ton of different insane gold farms in my Wrath Classic Gold Guide, which you can check out through the link in the video description. By purchasing this gold guide, you will also get access to an exclusive gold making Discord with even more gold making information as well, so if you're looking to make as much gold as possible in Wrath Classic, it is definitely worth checking out that gold guide, which once again is linked down below, and you can use the code Solheim to get it for 50% off. So let's talk about the farm. As you can see in the footage played in the background so far, we are killing a ton of mobs incredibly fast, and the loot is absolutely insane. You are getting multiple items worth 5 to 10 gold each, raw gold venerable items, and you also get a bunch of greens, blues and purples that can be disenchanted if you have enchanting, and the materials are worth more. That being said though, how is this farm actually done? Let's go through the farm itself. You start at the beginning, and just in case some of you haven't done Karazhan before, I will try not to speed through this too quickly and rather talk about everything. You enter the raid, and one thing, you need to be in a raid group to enter the raid, so you either invite your alt or a friend. Once you get up the stairs, avoid as many mobs as possible, distract this one guard with stealth detection, and jump over the ledge. For some reason, this distract on and ledge jump is exactly enough for it not to notice you in stealth. Once you go up these stairs, you go to the left of the mobs, as there is another stealth detection mob to the right, so avoid that one. Go through the sentinels and into the theater room, and this is where the first pull takes place. How you pull them doesn't really matter too much, but just find a way to pull both sides of the room and group them up. You can group them up into a wall if that is better for you, but if you have decent gear, you just do whatever. Personally, I like to only use evasion here so I don't have to wait longer than necessary between the two pulls, but if DPS is an issue for you, you can also use Adrenaline Rush. Keep spamming Fan of Knives until all of the small mobs are dead, at which point you can vanish to reset the two bigger elites, but personally I just single target them down as well for even more loot. What you do here will be gear dependent, so in phase 1 you probably want to vanish after killing the small mobs, while in phase 5 you can just one-shot everything. Once this pack is done, you loot them, eat up full health and move on. At this point you will start running back to where you came from, but you will jump onto this small ledge right here. Target one of the mobs from the pack like I do, and I'll mark the mob right here just in case, just so you know what I'm talking about. At this point you want to make sure that both your evasion and adrenaline rush are off cooldown before pulling, or at least ready in the next 10 seconds. Pull the nearest mob with some sort of a ranged attack, and this is where the professions come in handy, which we'll talk about at the end of this video, but you will see me using a rocket with engineering. You will also see me activating rocket boots while jumping, so this is so I can run away from the mobs before they daze me, and I try to find the right spot to jump down so I don't jump on top of the mobs. If they daze you, that might mess you up entirely, so try to avoid the mobs while jumping. Use the rocket boots ASAP and transition right into sprint after the rocket boots fade off. Sprint down the stairs, and now you wait roughly 5 seconds for the mobs to arrive to you before it's big boy DPS time. Once the mobs get to you, activate Evasion ASAP or you will die, and start spamming Fan of Knives. Activate Adrenaline Rush and Cold Blood, all of your DPS cooldowns, and go absolutely big dick DPS. At this point you are pretty much done, but there is one important thing that you need to know about: my gold guide. No, just kidding, but some of these mobs use a flamethrower immolate effect, and if you stay in this fire you will absolutely melt. So whenever you see anything fiery red on your screen, kite the mobs a little bit, like literally just take a few steps back or to the side, and you're good to go. You also want to keep an eye out on your debuffs, as these mobs will cast corruptions and curses on you, so use your Cloak of Shadows wisely to get rid of these damaging effects on you. And once again, if you're farming this in phase 1, you might want to vanish once again once you've killed all of the smaller mobs to reset the bigger elite, but if you're doing this in phase 5, then you can take all of the mobs quite comfortably. So let's talk about the setup, aka the gear, the spec, the glyphs, and the professions. First off, professions. You really want engineering. That hand rocket is extremely useful for pulling mobs at a distance, and personally, I use it during both pulls. The rocket boots effect is also incredible for the second pull, and I was actually really struggling with that pull before I used the rocket boots. You can also enchant your belt with a frag bomb effect, giving you slightly more DPS output. For a second profession, I would recommend enchanting, for the ability to disenchant whatever you don't want to vendor. For the spec itself, it is more relevant in phase 1 than later phases, as I do this both in my farming spec and my raiding spec, so really, just go with whatever you feel like. I like speccing into both Adrenaline Rush and Cold Blood, but while also looking out for energy regeneration talents so I can spam more Fan of Knives, there's also a talent that reduces the duration of movement and parrying effects on you, as well as increases your sprint speed, which is really useful. For glyphs, these are actually quite important. Glyph of Evasion gives you a longer evasion, and this one is absolutely necessary. Glyph of Fan of Knives also gives you more damage on your Fan of Knives ability, and this is pretty much the only ability you will use, so while it's not technically necessary, it is a huge boost. Glyph of Sprint is also very useful. For gear, go with the best gear possible. The better gear, the more DPS, obviously. This is why this farm will be more difficult in phase 1 than phase 5, and you will need to use Vanish to reset some mobs if you're farming this very early. The two items that you absolutely need are the Trinkets. Darkmoon Card Heroism will heal you while in melee combat, and this is pretty much exactly what keeps you alive. This trinket can actually be obtained right now, so you can make some decent gold by investing in it early, and then selling it to rogues that will use it for farming, but this trinket will also be a lot more easy to obtain in the pre-patch once inscription becomes available, as scribes can literally craft the Darkmoon cards. Trinket number 2 is the Essence of Gossamer, which is incredibly useful here, and pretty much necessary for survival. As for the loot itself, pretty much all of it is vendor gold, so it's straight up a raw gold farm. You might get some BOEs every now and then, that is worth auctioning, but with the amount of rogues that will be doing this, I would say 99.99% is vendor items, and therefore it's a raw gold farm. I will also take a moment at the end of this video to mention that Blizzard have put in anti-dungeon farming mechanics in many old dungeons like Stratholme and Slave Pens, as well as the Shadow Labs to prevent mage and paladins farming inside dungeons, so there is a chance they might do something similar to this farm in Wrath Classic, but if not, then this is probably the best gold farm of the entire expansion. That is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up down below, and while you're down there, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more Wrath content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.